Tonight, a headline that sounds almost unthinkable: the day Russia's nuclear force died. Did Ukraine really cripple Russia's most feared strategic weapons, the Yars and Topol-M missile systems, or is this the fog of modern information warfare? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear could redefine how power, deterrence, and war itself are understood in the 21st century. The claims emerging from Ukraine-linked sources have landed like a shockwave across global political and security circles, immediately triggering intense scrutiny and debate. According to these reports, precision strikes were allegedly carried out against facilities and assets associated with Russia's Yars and Topol-M intercontinental ballistic missile systems, platforms that sit at the very heart of Moscow's nuclear deterrent. If true even in part, this would represent a moment that challenges decades of strategic assumptions. The immediate hook is simple but unsettling. Weapons designed to survive a nuclear first strike may have been exposed by conventional or hybrid warfare tools. That possibility alone has forced analysts, diplomats, and defense planners to pause and reassess what was once considered unassailable. What makes these claims particularly explosive is not just the targets mentioned, but the implications behind them. The Yars and Topol-M systems are mobile, heavily protected, and integrated into a complex network of command, control, and concealment. They are built to remain operational under extreme conditions, including large-scale conflict. Reports suggesting that Ukraine could identify and strike related infrastructure raise urgent questions about intelligence penetration, surveillance capabilities, and the evolving role of precision warfare. Was it a direct kinetic strike, a coordinated sabotage effort, or part of a broader campaign targeting logistics and support nodes rather than the missiles themselves? That uncertainty is fueling speculation and fear. At the same time, officials and independent experts are urging caution. No authoritative confirmation has been released that Russia's nuclear launch capability has been neutralized, and history shows that early battlefield narratives can be exaggerated or strategically framed. Still, the political impact of the claim is undeniable. In an era where perception shapes power, the suggestion that Russia's nuclear backbone could be compromised carries immense psychological weight. Even the hint of vulnerability can undermine deterrence, unsettle allies, and embolden adversaries. The timing also matters. As the war continues to evolve, narratives of escalation and resilience are being closely watched by global audiences. These reports, verified or not, place unprecedented pressure on Moscow to respond, not necessarily with force, but with reassurance to its own public and to the international community. The real hook lies here. In modern conflict, the line between physical destruction and strategic messaging is thinner than ever. Whether these claims withstand scrutiny or fade under investigation, they have already altered the conversation, forcing the world to confront a once unthinkable question about the survivability of nuclear power in a new age of warfare. The strategic shockwaves from reports of potential disruption to Russia's Yars and Topol-M missile systems extend far beyond the battlefield, cutting directly into the core of Moscow's deterrence doctrine. These systems are not just weapons, they are the ultimate insurance policy of the Russian state, designed to guarantee retaliation under any circumstances. The very suggestion that elements of this force may have been compromised immediately rattles long-standing assumptions that nuclear deterrence is immune to conventional conflict. That is the hook gripping policymakers tonight. If the backbone of a nuclear arsenal can be pressured, repositioned, or even temporarily degraded, then the rules of strategic stability may no longer apply as they once did. For decades, Russia has relied on the credibility of its land-based missile forces to project strength and prevent direct confrontation with rival powers. The Yars and Topol-M systems, with their mobility and survivability, are central to that credibility. Any perceived weakness, even at the level of support infrastructure or command and control networks, forces Moscow into difficult strategic calculations. Increased dispersal of assets, heightened alert levels, and accelerated modernization efforts all come with costs, financial, operational, and political. Each adjustment sends signals to adversaries and allies alike, and those signals are being read closely in Washington, Brussels, and Beijing. The implications ripple outward. A shaken deterrence posture can narrow diplomatic flexibility and raise the risk of miscalculation. When a state feels its most powerful shield may be under threat, its threshold for escalation can change. That dynamic is what has analysts watching nervously, not the destruction itself, but how Russia interprets the threat and responds to it. Strategic forces are as much about perception as hardware, and once confidence is questioned, restoring it becomes a complex challenge. There is also a broader lesson unfolding in real time. The alleged disruption highlights how modern warfare increasingly targets the systems around the weapon: communications, logistics, intelligence, rather than the weapon alone. This approach undermines strategic stability without crossing explicit nuclear red lines, creating a gray zone that existing doctrines struggle to address. The hook here is unsettling. Deterrence may no longer hinge solely on missiles in silos or launchers on the move, but on invisible networks that are far more vulnerable. As these developments are debated, the world is watching how Russia recalibrates its posture under pressure. Any shift, subtle or dramatic, will shape the next phase of the conflict and influence how nuclear powers think about deterrence in an era where even the strongest forces may no longer be beyond reach. Despite the dramatic nature of the claims, a significant layer of uncertainty continues to surround the situation, and that uncertainty itself has become a central part of the story. Independent verification remains limited, with no clear confirmation from neutral observers that Russia's Yars or Topol-M nuclear missile systems have suffered direct, irreversible damage. This gap between claim and confirmation is where the real tension lies. In modern conflict, information moves faster than facts, and the first narrative to take hold can shape global perception long before evidence catches up. That is the hook gripping political and media circles right now. Is the world witnessing a genuine strategic breakthrough or a powerful example of wartime messaging amplified by digital momentum? Military experts caution that nuclear forces are designed with redundancy precisely to withstand confusion, partial disruption, and misinformation. Even if certain facilities, logistics hubs, or communication nodes were targeted, that does not automatically translate into the loss of launch capability. Russia's strategic arsenal is layered, dispersed, and protected by overlapping systems that are difficult to fully assess from the outside. Analysts stress that satellite imagery, intercepted communications, or unofficial battlefield reports rarely provide a complete picture. This is why governments and intelligence agencies are moving carefully, avoiding definitive statements while quietly reassessing risk. The lack of confirmation has also fueled competing interpretations. Supporters of the claims argue that secrecy surrounding nuclear forces makes full verification unlikely by design, suggesting that silence itself may indicate sensitivity. Skeptics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, warning that overstated narratives can distort decision-making and escalate tensions unnecessarily. This clash of interpretations has turned verification into a political battleground where credibility, intent, and strategic messaging are all under scrutiny. There is a deeper concern driving this caution. History offers numerous examples where early reports from conflict zones proved inaccurate or exaggerated, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes as part of psychological operations. In a nuclear context, the stakes are far higher. Misjudging the extent of damage, or believing damage where none exists, could influence military postures, alert levels, and diplomatic responses. The hook here is sobering. Uncertainty itself can be destabilizing, especially when nuclear deterrence depends on clarity and mutual understanding. As governments weigh what is known against what is rumored, the story continues to evolve in a space between evidence and perception. Until credible, independent confirmation emerges, the claims remain powerful but unproven, shaping headlines and debates while leaving the most critical questions unanswered. The alleged incident has thrown a sharp spotlight on a deeper transformation already underway in global conflict, one that challenges traditional definitions of power and vulnerability. Modern warfare is no longer confined to tanks, aircraft, and front lines. It now unfolds across intelligence networks, digital systems, logistics chains, and precision strike capabilities that can reach far beyond the immediate battlefield. The hook capturing attention worldwide is this: assets once considered untouchable because of their strategic importance may now be exposed by methods that do not resemble conventional war at all. That realization is forcing militaries and governments to rethink how wars are fought, and more importantly, how they are prevented. At the center of this shift is the growing effectiveness of asymmetric tactics. Drones, cyber capabilities, real-time intelligence sharing, and long-range precision weapons have given smaller or less equipped forces the ability to challenge far stronger adversaries. Instead of confronting heavily defended targets head-on, modern strategies focus on exploiting weak points, communications, supply routes, maintenance facilities, and command structures. The power of this approach lies in its ambiguity. Damage can be inflicted without clear attribution, and pressure can be applied without crossing the thresholds that traditionally trigger full-scale retaliation. What makes this development particularly unsettling is how it blurs established red lines. Strategic systems such as nuclear forces were long protected not just by physical defenses, but by the assumption that attacking them would invite catastrophic consequences. Today, however, operations can be designed to remain below that threshold while still undermining confidence in those systems. The hook here is uncomfortable. Deterrence depends on certainty, and uncertainty is becoming a weapon in its own right. This evolution also reshapes the political dimension of conflict. Governments must now manage public perception alongside military risk, responding to incidents that may be strategically minor but symbolically enormous. A single successful strike, cyber intrusion, or intelligence leak can dominate global headlines and force reactions that outpace the actual scale of damage. In this environment, speed matters as much as strength, and narrative control can influence outcomes before facts are fully established. As these tactics become more refined, the battlefield effectively expands to everywhere and nowhere at once. Defense planners are grappling with how to protect systems that rely on interconnected networks rather than isolated fortifications. The deeper hook lies in this reality. The future of warfare may be decided less by overwhelming force and more by who can see, disrupt, and adapt the fastest in a landscape where the old rules no longer guarantee safety. The global reaction to these developments has been swift, cautious, and deeply calculated, reflecting how sensitive the balance of power has become. NATO members, the United States, and other major powers are watching closely, not only for confirmation of what actually happened, but for what it might signal about the future of deterrence. The immediate hook driving diplomatic backchannels is this: if a nuclear-armed state appears even momentarily exposed, the implications extend far beyond the conflict itself. This is why capitals around the world are treating the situation not as a regional issue, but as a potential stress test for the entire international security system. In Washington, defense and intelligence officials are reportedly examining the claims through multiple lenses, weighing technical feasibility against strategic intent. The concern is not limited to Russia's capabilities alone, but to precedent. If advanced missile systems can be pressured indirectly, then similar vulnerabilities may exist elsewhere. That realization sharpens the focus on homeland security, early warning systems, and alliance coordination. The message being quietly reinforced among allies is vigilance without panic, but the tension is unmistakable. Across Europe, NATO governments face a delicate balancing act. On one hand, they must reassure their populations that escalation risks remain under control. On the other, they cannot ignore signals that the strategic environment is shifting. The hook here lies in the unspoken fear of miscalculation. Any perceived weakening of deterrence, whether real or exaggerated, could alter decision-making timelines in a crisis. This is why diplomatic language has been measured, emphasizing stability while privately reassessing contingency plans. China and other global powers are also observing closely, reading the situation through the lens of their own strategic interests. For Beijing, the episode offers insights into how modern conflict intersects with nuclear deterrence and information warfare, the reactions of Western powers, the restraint or response from Moscow, and the global narrative that emerges all provide valuable data. In this sense, the conflict becomes a live demonstration of how power is tested without open confrontation. What ties these reactions together is a shared recognition that global security is increasingly interconnected. A development in one theater can ripple across alliances, markets, and military doctrines worldwide. The hook driving global attention is not simply what has happened, but what could happen next if assumptions about deterrence continue to erode. In that uncertainty, every signal, statement, and silence carries weight, shaping a world that is watching closely and recalibrating in real time. Beyond the physical realities of missiles, bases, and infrastructure, the most powerful impact of these developments may be psychological, striking at the core of how deterrence has functioned for generations. Nuclear strategy has always relied on belief as much as capability, the belief that forces are survivable, command systems are secure, and retaliation is inevitable. The hook dominating strategic thinking right now is this. Once that belief is shaken even slightly, the balance of fear that has prevented major war begins to shift. In today's information-driven conflicts, perception can travel faster and hit harder than any weapon. The narrative suggesting vulnerability in Russia's nuclear posture has already begun to reshape conversations, regardless of verification. Allies, adversaries, and neutral observers are absorbing not just what may have happened, but what it appears to say about strength and control. This is where psychological impact becomes decisive. If a nuclear power is seen as less secure, even temporarily, it can invite probing, pressure, and heightened risks, taking from opponents while simultaneously fueling anxiety and defensiveness at home. The battlefield moves into the minds of leaders, commanders, and populations. Modern warfare has amplified this effect through constant information flow. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, and rapid analysis mean narratives can harden before official responses are fully formed. A single claim, repeated often enough, can erode confidence and force reactions that might not have occurred in a slower era. The hook here is unsettling. Deterrence no longer depends solely on missiles standing ready, but on controlling the story surrounding them. Silence, denial, or delayed responses can all be interpreted as signals, whether intended or not. This psychological pressure also influences escalation dynamics. When credibility feels threatened, states may adopt more assertive postures to reestablish deterrence, increasing military visibility or issuing sharper rhetoric. Such moves are often meant to reassure and deter, yet they can also heighten tension and narrow the margin for error. The fear is not deliberate escalation, but accidental escalation driven by misreading intent in an environment saturated with uncertainty. At a deeper level, the episode highlights how the balance of fear itself may be evolving. Traditional deterrence assumed that nuclear forces were beyond the reach of conventional conflict, creating a clear separation between levels of war. As that separation blurs, psychological stability becomes harder to maintain. The hook gripping global attention is this realization. In an age where perception can undermine power as effectively as destruction, the struggle for strategic dominance is no longer confined to launch systems or warheads, but to confidence, credibility, and control of the narrative in a world that never stops watching. As of now, independent verification remains limited, and official confirmations are carefully worded or absent. But one thing is clear: this story is bigger than missiles and maps. It's about how power is challenged, how narratives are weaponized, and how quickly the balance of fear can shift. If this truly marks the day Russia's nuclear force died, or even appeared vulnerable, history may look back on this moment as a turning point in global security. We will continue to follow this developing story,